Can a movie lose millions, get ignored by audiences, and still be better than the blockbuster that crushed it? We're diving into 15 sci-fi box office disasters that were too strange, too smart, or too ahead of their time for the crowd. Some were mocked, some were buried, and some nearly ended careers. Yet today, fans call them perfect. But one flop did not just fail at release, it quietly changed the future of sci-fi forever. Number 15. Equilibrium, 2002. In a world where feelings are treated like crimes, one man becomes dangerous the moment he starts to feel. Equilibrium looked like another sleek dystopian action film at first glance, but underneath the black coats, polished gun battles, and cold futuristic city was a sharp idea about control. Christian Bale plays John Preston, an elite enforcer trained to destroy anything that awakens emotion. Art, music, memory, grief, even love. The society around him survives by numbing its people into obedience, and that is what makes the movie hit harder than expected. It is not just about rebellion, it is about the terrifying cost of becoming perfectly obedient. The film underperformed badly when it arrived, partly because audiences dismissed it as another Matrix-era copycat. But over time, its reputation changed. Fans began praising its gun-kata action, its icy production design, and Bale's intense performance. What once looked like a failure now feels like a warning. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not a gun, but a human being who finally remembers how to care. Number 14. Treasure Planet, 2002. Disney built a whole universe out of starlight, pirates, and broken dreams, then watched audiences sail right past it. Treasure Planet was one of the studio's most ambitious animated swings, reimagining the classic adventure of Treasure Island as a dazzling space fantasy filled with solar surfing, alien ports, glowing maps, and ships that glide through the stars like old wooden vessels crossing an ocean. At its heart is Jim Hawkins, a restless teenager carrying the pain of abandonment and the hunger to prove he is more than a disappointment. That emotional core is what makes the film more than visual spectacle. His bond with John Silver gives the story warmth, tension, and heartbreak, turning a space adventure into something surprisingly personal. But when the movie reached theaters, it became a painful box office disappointment, overshadowed by changing audience tastes and the rise of computer animation. Today, many fans see it differently. The hand-drawn beauty, bold world-building, and emotional storytelling now feel rare. Treasure Planet did not fail because it lacked magic. It failed because the world was not ready to treasure it. Number 13. The Abyss, 1989. Some movies look beneath the ocean and find monsters. This one looked down there and found something almost spiritual. The Abyss was James Cameron pushing science fiction into one of its most dangerous places, the crushing black silence of the deep sea. The story follows a civilian diving team pulled into a military rescue mission after a nuclear submarine mysteriously sinks near the Cayman Trough. At first, it feels like a survival thriller about pressure, panic, and steel walls closing in. Then slowly, the film becomes something much stranger and more emotional. Ed Harris gives the movie its human anchor as Bud Brigman, a man trapped between duty, fear, and unfinished love. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio brings equal force as Lindsay, whose intelligence and stubborn courage keep the story from becoming just another underwater spectacle. What makes The Abyss so fascinating is how much physical effort seems burned into every frame. The water feels real, the exhaustion feels real, and the danger feels almost impossible to fake. Yet despite its ambition, its groundbreaking visual effects, and its massive scale, the film struggled to become the gigantic commercial event people expected. Some viewers found it too long, too intense, or too emotional for a sci-fi adventure. But time has been kinder. Today, The Abyss feels like a rare blockbuster with both muscle and soul. It is not just about discovering alien life, it is about whether humanity is mature enough to deserve contact. Number 12. Serenity, 2005. This was not just a movie for fans. It was a rescue mission for a universe that television abandoned too soon. Serenity arrived carrying the hopes of Firefly viewers who had watched a brilliant sci-fi western disappear before it had a chance to fully breathe. On the surface, it follows Captain Malcolm Reynolds and his crew as they protect River Tam, a young woman whose mind holds secrets powerful people desperately want buried. But the real magic of Serenity is not just the chase, the spaceships, or the gunfire. It is the feeling that every person aboard that ship has already lost something. and still chooses loyalty over comfort. Nathan Fillion gives Mal a bruised, bitter charm, while Summer Glau makes River feel both fragile and terrifyingly powerful. The film blends outlaw adventure, conspiracy thriller, and emotional farewell into one fast-moving story. Yet outside its devoted fanbase, mainstream audiences did not show up in the numbers needed. For casual viewers, the mythology may have seemed too specific. For fans, it felt like a miracle. That contrast is what makes Serenity such a perfect, underrated sci-fi bomb. It did not fail because it lacked heart. It failed because its heart belonged to a crew many people had not met yet. Years later, it still works as a passionate final stand. A movie about found family, resistance, and the stubborn need to keep flying when every system wants you grounded. Number 11. Sunshine, 2007. The sun is dying, humanity is freezing, and one small crew carries the last match in the universe. Sunshine begins with a premise so enormous it almost feels mythic. A team of astronauts must travel toward the sun and deliver a nuclear payload that could restart it. But Danny Boyle does not treat this mission like simple spectacle. He turns space into a cathedral, a tomb, and a psychological battlefield all at once. The film's power comes from its atmosphere, blinding light outside the ship, suffocating silence inside it, and people slowly breaking under the weight of saving everyone they have ever known. Cillian Murphy brings quiet intensity as Kappa, a physicist who understands the mission but cannot control the fear surrounding it. The rest of the crew feels equally human. Not like heroic symbols, but like exhausted professionals trying not to fall apart. Sunshine is visually majestic, but its real tension comes from moral choices. Who gets to live? Who must sacrifice? And what happens when survival becomes almost religious? At release, the film struggled to find a large audience. It was too serious for casual action fans, too strange for mainstream disaster movie viewers, and too bleak for easy comfort. But that is exactly why it lingers. Sunshine is not a clean adventure. It is a fever dream about hope under impossible pressure. Its failure feels almost unfair, because few sci-fi films make the end of the world look this beautiful and this terrifying. Number 10. Annihilation, 2018. Some films explain the unknown. Annihilation lets it bloom, rot, and stare back at you. Alex Garland's strange and hypnotic sci-fi thriller follows a team of women entering the Shimmer, a mysterious expanding zone where biology no longer obeys ordinary rules. Inside, plants grow like sculptures, animals mutate into nightmares, and identity itself begins to feel unstable. Natalie Portman plays Lena, a biologist carrying grief, guilt, and suspicion into a place that seems to rewrite everything it touches. What makes Annihilation so powerful is that it never behaves like a typical alien contact film. It is not interested in easy answers or clean victories. Instead, it becomes a story about self-destruction, transformation, and the frightening possibility that change does not care whether humans understand it. The imagery is unforgettable. Impossible flowers, abandoned spaces, silent terror, and a final encounter that feels less like a battle than a nightmare made of mirrors. Yet the film was too cerebral and unsettling for a broad audience. It did not become the big mainstream hit its cast and concept might suggest. Many viewers wanted explanations. The movie offered infection, mutation, and mystery. Over time, that became its strength. Annihilation is now praised because it trusts the viewer to feel before they fully understand. It is a sci-fi bomb that works like a wound, beautiful on the surface, terrifying underneath, and almost impossible to forget once it gets inside your head. Number 9. The Fountain, 2006. This is the kind of film that does not ask to be watched once. It asks to be haunted by it later. The Fountain is Darren Aronofsky's cosmic meditation on love, mortality, grief, and the impossible human desire to defeat loss. It moves across different timelines and dreamlike realities, following versions of a man searching for a way to save the woman he loves. Hugh Jackman gives one of his most vulnerable performances, stripped of superhero confidence and filled instead with desperation, sorrow, and obsession. Rachel Weisz brings a calm, aching presence that makes the entire film feel like a memory slipping away. This is not sci-fi in the loud, mechanical sense. It is spiritual science fiction, filled with stars, trees, golden light, ancient quests, and intimate heartbreak. That ambition is exactly why it divided people. Many viewers found it confusing or too abstract. The box office was harsh, and the film never became the event its scale suggested. But for the people who connected with it, The Fountain became something sacred. Its visual style is rich without feeling artificial, and its emotional core is simple beneath all the symbolism. What do you do when love cannot stop time? That question gives the film its lasting power. It failed commercially because it was too unusual to sell easily, but it endures because it dared to turn sci-fi into a prayer, a memory, and a farewell. Number 8. Event Horizon, 1997. A lost spaceship returns from the darkness, but the real terror is where it has been. Event Horizon is one of those films that seemed too harsh, too strange, and too nightmarish for its original moment, only to become exactly the kind of cult sci-fi horror fans later searched for. The story begins with a rescue crew sent to investigate a spacecraft that vanished years earlier and suddenly reappeared near Neptune. That setup sounds like a standard haunted house in space thriller, but the film quickly becomes far more disturbing. The ship is not just empty. It feels infected by something beyond normal human understanding. Lawrence Fishburne brings authority and control as Captain Miller, while Sam Neill slowly turns the film into a descent through guilt, madness, and cosmic dread. What makes Event Horizon memorable is its atmosphere: steel corridors, flickering lights, distorted recordings, and the sense that space itself has opened a door no one should have touched. At release, critics were not kind, and audiences did not turn it into a hit. Its reputation suffered because it seemed extreme, messy, and hard to categorize. But years later, those same qualities made it legendary. It blends sci-fi technology with gothic horror, turning a futuristic ship into a cursed cathedral. Event Horizon is not perfect in a polished studio sense, but as a nightmare engine, it works brutally well. It failed in theaters, then came back like its own ship, damaged, feared, and impossible to ignore. Number 7. Dread, 2012. Every frame of Dread feels like a door slamming shut, and every floor climbed feels like survival getting more expensive. Instead of building a massive, overstuffed comic book universe, Dread traps the viewer inside one brutal megatower and lets pressure do the rest. Carl Urban plays Judge Dredd, with a performance that is almost all voice, posture, and granite-faced discipline. He never needs to remove the helmet, because the character is not asking for sympathy. He is law turned into a walking weapon. Alongside him, Olivia Thirlby's Anderson gives the film its human tension, a rookie with psychic ability who sees the cost behind the violence. The plot is beautifully simple. Two judges enter Peach Trees, a towering slum controlled by a ruthless criminal boss, and must fight their way through a building designed to swallow them. Lena Headey makes Mama cold, damaged, and terrifying without turning her into a cartoon. The action is sharp, stylish, and shockingly focused, especially with the slow-motion drug sequences that transform destruction into glittering nightmare imagery. Yet despite strong cult appeal, Dread underperformed badly in theaters. Maybe audiences expected something bigger. Maybe the marketing failed to explain how good it really was. But the film's reputation exploded afterward because it did what many modern action films forget. It stayed lean, intense, and committed. Dread is not just underrated. It is a masterclass in how to make a small-scale sci-fi action film feel enormous. Number 6. Dark City, 1998. Before reality bending became a blockbuster obsession, Dark City built a nightmare city where even memory could not be trusted. The film opens with a man waking in a strange room, hunted for reasons he cannot understand, in a city where the sun never seems to rise. From that first moment, Alex Proyas creates a world that feels like film noir. German expressionism, detective mystery, and cosmic science fiction melted into one shadowy dream. Rufus Sewell plays John Murdoch as a man trying to solve not only a crime, but his own existence. Jennifer Connelly brings melancholy elegance, while Kiefer Sutherland gives the film a nervous, strange energy as Dr. Schreiber. The true power of Dark City is its central idea. What makes you human if your memories can be rewritten? The mysterious strangers do not simply control buildings or streets. They rearrange lives, identities, marriages, childhoods, and guilt. Every midnight, the city transforms, and people wake up believing the lie placed inside them. At release, the film was admired by some, but missed the mass audience it deserved. It was too weird, too moody, and too visually unusual to become an easy hit. But now it feels prophetic. Dark City anticipated many of the questions modern sci-fi would obsess over: simulation, identity, control, and false reality. It is one of the purest examples of a box office disappointment, later recognized as a visionary classic hiding in plain sight. Number 5. Gattaca, 1997. Gattaca is frightening because its future does not look wild. It looks clean, polite, and already possible. There are no giant monsters, no laser battles, and no noisy apocalypse. Instead, the film imagines a society where genetics decide your worth before your life has even begun. Ethan Hawke plays Vincent, a man considered inferior by design, yet obsessed with reaching space in a world that has already decided he does not belong there. His dream is not treated like fantasy. It becomes an act of quiet rebellion. Jude Law's Jerome adds tragedy and complexity, a genetically gifted man whose perfect design could not protect him from despair. Uma Thurman gives the film emotional restraint, showing how even people inside the system are trapped by its cold rules. What makes Gattaca powerful is its elegance. The architecture, costumes, music, and performances are controlled and minimal, making the society feel beautiful on the surface and cruel underneath. When the film arrived, audiences did not reward it. It was too restrained for mainstream sci-fi fans expecting spectacle, and too philosophical for viewers wanting simple thrills. But its reputation has grown because its questions only became more relevant. How much of your future should be decided by biology? Who benefits when human potential becomes a measurement? Gattaca failed commercially, but creatively, it aged like a warning carved in glass. It is not loud sci-fi. It is precise, emotional, and quietly devastating. Number 4. The Iron Giant, 1999. The Iron Giant did not need a galaxy to break hearts. It only needed a boy, a robot, and one impossible choice. Brad Bird's animated masterpiece tells the story of Hogarth Hughes, a lonely child who discovers a massive metal visitor from space hiding near his small town. At first, the film feels like a gentle adventure about friendship and wonder, but slowly, it becomes something deeper, a story about fear, identity, and whether someone built as a weapon can choose to become something else. The Giant, voiced with warmth and innocence by Vin Diesel, becomes one of animation's most unforgettable creations, not because he is powerful, but because he learns kindness. The film's setting adds emotional weight, with Cold War paranoia turning curiosity into panic. Adults see a threat where Hogarth sees a friend, and that tension gives the movie its ache. Despite beautiful animation, humor, and emotional depth, The Iron Giant was a major theatrical disappointment. Its release suffered from weak marketing, and audiences did not realize what they were missing until later. Then the film found its real life on home video and television, where viewers finally discovered its soul. Today, it is regarded as one of the greatest animated sci-fi films ever made. Its failure feels almost tragic, because the movie itself is about being misunderstood. The Iron Giant reminds viewers that you are not always what the world fears you are. Sometimes you are what you choose to be. Number 3. Children of Men, 2006. Children of Men feels less like a prediction and more like a warning broadcast from a world already collapsing. Alfonso Cuarón's dystopian masterpiece imagines a future where no children have been born for years, and society has slowly rotted under the weight of hopelessness. The world is not presented as shiny or futuristic. It is dirty, crowded, militarized, exhausted, and frighteningly familiar. Clive Owen plays Theo, a broken man pulled back into purpose when he is asked to protect Key, a young woman carrying a miracle that could change everything. The film's brilliance is in how grounded it feels. Background details reveal entire histories: news screens, refugee cages, graffiti, smoke, sirens, and faces that look too tired to believe in tomorrow. Cuarón's famous long takes do not feel like technical tricks. They make the danger feel inescapable, as if the viewer is trapped inside the chaos with no clean cutaway. Despite powerful reviews and unforgettable craft, the film did not become the box office success its quality deserved. It may have been too bleak, too political, and too emotionally heavy for audiences looking for escape. But time has turned Children of Men into one of the most respected sci-fi films of its century. Its central question still hurts. When the future disappears, what remains worth protecting? That is why it belongs near the top. It was overlooked as entertainment, but it survived as cinema that refuses to stop echoing. Number 2. Blade Runner 2049, 2017. Blade Runner 2049 is the rare sequel that did not chase nostalgia. It walked into loneliness and built a cathedral there. Denis Villeneuve took one of science fiction's most intimidating classics and expanded it with patience, beauty, and emotional weight. The story follows Kay, a replicant working as a Blade Runner, who uncovers a secret that could destabilize the fragile order between humans and artificial beings. Ryan Gosling plays him with quiet restraint, making small gestures feel loaded with longing. Harrison Ford returns not as a simple legacy cameo, but as a wounded man hiding from the consequences of the past. Visually, the film is astonishing. Orange wastelands, rain-soaked cities, abandoned casinos, giant holograms, and cold corporate spaces that make the future feel both huge and empty. Roger Deakins' cinematography turns almost every frame into a painting, but the film is not just beautiful, it is deeply sad. It asks whether memory, love, and sacrifice are less real if they were designed. Despite critical praise, Blade Runner 2049 disappointed financially because it was expensive, slow, long, and emotionally demanding in a marketplace built for faster thrills. But those supposed weaknesses are why it endures. It gives viewers space to feel the loneliness of its world. It respects silence. It trusts atmosphere. It turns a detective story into a meditation on identity. As a commercial gamble, it stumbled. As a sci-fi experience, it is almost impossibly rich. Number 1. Blade Runner, 1982. The greatest sci-fi bomb on this list did not explode at the box office. It detonated slowly, inside the future of cinema. Blade Runner arrived as a dark, rain-soaked philosophical detective story at a time when many audiences expected faster adventure from science fiction. Ridley Scott created a Los Angeles filled with neon, smoke, crowded streets, giant advertisements, and constant decay. It looked futuristic and ancient at the same time, like civilization had kept building upward while its soul disappeared below. Harrison Ford plays Rick Deckard, a weary Blade Runner assigned to hunt replicants, artificial beings who look human but are treated like disposable products. But the film's emotional force comes from the replicants themselves, especially Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer, with tragic intensity. He is frightening, poetic, desperate, and heartbreakingly alive. The central mystery is not simply who is human, but what humanity even means when memory, fear, love, and mortality can exist in a manufactured body. At release, Blade Runner struggled against mixed reactions, studio confusion, and audience expectations. It was too slow for some, too strange for others, and too bleak to become an instant crowd pleaser. But over time, its reputation transformed completely. Cyberpunk, anime, video games, music videos, fashion, and modern sci-fi all absorbed its DNA. What audiences once overlooked became the blueprint for entire visual worlds. Blade Runner is number 1 because it proves the whole point of this list. Sometimes a film fails because it is not behind its time, but terrifyingly ahead of it. So next time someone calls a movie a flop, remember this list. Sometimes the box office gets it wrong, critics get confused, and audiences only understand the magic years later. These 15 sci-fi bombs were not failures of imagination. They were warnings, dreams, and masterpieces ahead of schedule. Which one deserved a second life the most? Comment below and subscribe for more hidden classics.